I love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
What's up, homies? Leighton here for UFC Gambling Addicts, back again for another UFC full card breakdown and predictions video. This one's going to be Robert Whittaker versus Darren Till. A lot of really good fights on this card. Before we move into our usual routine, this breakdown is sponsored by Manscaped. Get 20% off plus free shipping plus 2 free gifts at manscaped.com with code UGA20. That's 20% off, homies. Manscaped created the world's first all-in-one manscaping kit that makes manscaping safe and easy. This is basically the Save Your Balls set. The caption Manscaped have used on this box is brilliant. Not only true, but hilarious and brilliant. These products are the perfect tools for your family jewels. Again, use code UGA20 to get 20% off, free shipping and 2 free gifts at manscaped.com. This is where it's at, guys. For us men, we have to stay looking fresh, and the best way to do that is with Manscaped. Amen to Manscaped for giving me the chance to work with them. I greatly appreciate that. Now, I don't feel obliged to say this, but please stay tuned for the smoke break because I have quite a few shout outs to give during that smoke break. You probably know who you are. We're also going to look at last week's breakdown goals to see if we hit those goals that I set. And we're going to look at this breakdown's goals as well during the smoke break. Now, we have 15 fights on this card, guys. A lot of fights to break down. So we're not going to recap Wednesday night and Saturday night. But here's the bets for that card. We made very good money on Wednesday night and even better money on Saturday night. And I want to keep that going for this card. You know, there's a few fights on this card that I really like for betting on. And there's a few fights that are quite tough to decide on. You know, there's some really good matchups on this card. But yeah, Wednesday night, good for profit. Saturday night, even better. If you're a channel member, I hope you're using these insights well. I hope they're paying off for you as well. Now, one bet that I do have is Brett Johns. Brett Johns is a part of my bets. And some of you guys may be thinking, you didn't take Brett Johns, you took Montel Jackson. Now, after the second round, I saw Brett Johns was plus 200. And I just had to. You know, I rarely ever use in-play betting. But when I saw that, you know, you can get a good gauge on where that third round was going to go. If you watch the first 10 minutes of that fight. And unfortunate for Montel, he didn't have the heart, he didn't have the conditioning, he didn't have enough in the tank to go 15 minutes with the pikey. So I did use some in-play with Brett Johns. Davison Figueiredo, round 1. We've got some underdog parlays too. So yeah, Wednesday night and Saturday night were very good nights. Let's get on with breaking down this massive card. First fight on this card, we have Nathaniel, the Prospect Wood versus John, Sexy Mexi Castaneda. And we're going to start with my fellow Englishman, Nathaniel Wood. So Nathaniel comes into this fight 3 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. A very well-rounded fighter. Mainly has success with his wrestling. Nathaniel chains his jiu-jitsu with his wrestling. Johnny Eduardo, Andre Ewell, and Quinones. Nathaniel was able to finish all of these guys with his jiu-jitsu. His most recent fight didn't go his way, stopped by the veteran striker John Dodson. There's no shame in that loss though. That's a learning experience, a growing experience for Nathaniel. The opponent, John Castaneda, comes into this fight 17 wins, 4 losses as a pro, making his UFC debut. Castaneda is primarily a striker from what I've seen on tape. Uses a lot of feints to set his boxing up, a lot of power in his hands too. Castaneda is a dangerous guy when he has you hurt, really comes for the kill if he sees you're hurt. This is quite a difficult matchup to predict. It's like a case of Munir versus Al Hassan. You know you have a fighter that's impressed you, He's somewhat proven himself as a top fighter. Then you have a guy debuting who you could see a path to victory for. If this fight stays strictly striking, I think Castaneda has a good chance of clipping Nathaniel. And that's not a knock on Nathaniel. He's a good striker too. The advantage in this matchup, I believe, is mixing it up. If Nathaniel uses those low kicks, sticks a solid jab in Castaneda's face, looks to work up against the fence, add the takedown and ground control in, I think Nathaniel pretty much wins this fight. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Nathaniel Wood via decision. And I haven't seen any odds on this card yet, guys. I always check them first with you. First fight odds, we have Nathaniel Wood coming in minus 400. Castaneda returning plus 300, plus 330. Wow. I mean, personally, I think this is a little bit tougher to predict than those odds suggest. But yeah, I understand them. Like I said, you had that case with Al Hassan and Munir. Al Hassan is a proven guy, just like Nathaniel Wood. So you would stick with that would be the safe bet. You know, Wood, experienced, he's fought in the UFC, he has a well-rounded game, good jiu-jitsu, good wrestling. But if he stays in a striking battle, I wouldn't be surprised. You know, the sexy Mexi, he's got some hands. Fight number 2, we have Khamzat Chimaev versus Reese Skeletor McKee. And we're going to start with Khamzat first. So Khamzat comes into this fight 1-0 inside the UFC. We saw Khamzat debut just a week ago. He asked Dana White for another fight and he got it. Khamzat is primarily a wrestler, completely destroyed John Phillips. The performance Khamzat displayed was very, very Khabib-like. Just complete domination with his wrestling. He'll be stepping back down to his natural weight class of 170 pounds for this one. The opponent, Reese McKee, comes into this fight 10 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw as a pro, making his UFC debut. I am aware of McKee's work. I'm a fan of Cage Warriors. McKee, in my opinion, is more of a lightweight than a welterweight. Now, some of you guys may disagree with that and say, how can you say that? Reese McKee is 6'1". That's fair. Frame-wise, he is a welterweight. But the problem is he's not got a lot of muscle. Isn't physically strong for that weight class. Terry Brazier was able to manhandle McKee at 155. If Terry Brazier is able to take down McKee, win those scrambling battles, honestly, I can't imagine what Khamzat is going to do. Khamzat looked really big at 185. He's going to look huge in there with Reese McKee. I see domination again, just a smothering performance from Chimaev. Maybe even more dominantly than his debut, which is weird to say because his debut was extremely dominant. But I don't see Reese McKee competing with the grappling, competing with the striking. I think he's been drafted in for a UFC debut, completely outmatched against this wrestling monster that is Chimaev. So my pick is going to be Khamzat Chimaev via submission in round number 1. Now, I haven't seen any odds, but my guess is going to be like a minus 800 on Chimaev. Yeah, okay, minus 800, minus 830, minus 760, minus 900, minus 1,000. Oh my God, man, poor Reese McKee. I mean, I give this lad credit. Do you know what I mean? He's stepping in. He would have seen the debut against John Phillips. But he wants to make it to the UFC. And when you get that opportunity, you have to take that opportunity. And that's exactly what Reese McKee has done. Can he win this fight? In my opinion, no. If he does, that unbelievable. Unbelievable if he wins this fight. Because if he does win this fight, it's because he stopped the takedown somehow, or he found a Hail Mary submission off his back, or he survived on the mat and somehow finished it later on in the fight, which either of those are unbelievable for Rhys McKee, but yeah, you'd have to go with Chimaev there. Moving into the next one, we have Emeev versus Nicholas Green Mask Stolze, and we're going to start with the Russian Ramazan. So Ramazan comes into this fight 3 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. Primarily a grappler, as most Russians are, a champion in combat sambo. Ramazan hasn't exactly shown top 10 qualities so far in his UFC fights, yet to finish a fight in the UFC. All 4 of his fights go in the full 15-minute distance. He suffered defeat in his last fight against Tony Martin. The calf work that Tony displayed in that fight was beautiful. If Tony Martin is able to land low kick after low kick, Nicholas Stolze, being a K1 kickboxer, should be able to land a few kicks of his own. The opponent, Nicholas Stolze, comes into this fight 12-3 as a pro, making his UFC debut. Primarily a kickboxer, that's his chosen art before transitioning into MMA. It's no secret that this matchup is purely striker versus grappler. It's quite an olden saying, because all of these guys are training in more than their chosen art. But that's really what we have here. Nicholas wins a kickboxing contest 10 times out of 10 against Emeev. The flip side is, Emeev wins a wrestling contest 10 times out of 10 against Nicholas Stolze. A fighter I mentioned earlier, Terry Brazier, was able to take down Rhys McKee and win in that type of way. Again, Terry was able to take down Nicholas, force him into a grappling match, and had a lot of success there. If Terry is able to take down Nicholas, I think Emeev can too. So for those reasons, I'll take Emeev via decision. Man, Terry Brazier has wins over 2 guys making their UFC debut on this card. Credit to that man. The odds on that matchup, we have Ramazan coming in -400. Wow, that's deep. Nicholas returning +290, +300. I don't understand why they're so deep on Emeev, man. Like I said earlier, I don't feel like he's shown top 10, top 15 quality as of yet. I kind of get it, you know, he does have the grappling advantage. But Stolze for sure has the striking advantage, you know. Tony Martin landed a lot of nice kicks in that fight. Nicholas Stolze will be looking to stay on his feet and land his own kicks. But the pick has to be Emeev there for me. Fight number 4, we have Bethe Pitbull Collier versus Pannie Bonsai Kianzad. And we're going to start with the Brazilian first. So Bethe comes into this fight 5 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw inside the UFC. Primarily a power puncher inside the octagon. There's power in everything that Bethe throws. As far as technique, I can't speak too highly of her there. Toughness and strength up against the fence, I'd say go for Bethe. I actually took Bethe as a +250 underdog against Sarge Eubanks. Part of my pick process in that one was the fact that Sarge slows down a lot after round 1. If Bethe can fatigue you, draw you into a punch for punch type of fight, she has a good chance for sure. The opponent, Pannie Kianzad, comes into this fight 1 win, 2 losses inside the UFC. A boxer and wrestler inside the octagon, Pannie had a very tough UFC debut against a huge Macy Chiasson. Just bullied in that fight, couldn't compete with the size of Chiasson. Against Julia Avila, although the size wasn't too different, again, just outclassed, bullied. Most recently we saw Pannie get her first UFC win against Jessica Rose Clark. Her boxing looked very sharp and she had the grappling advantage in that fight too. So based off history, you want Pannie Kianzad to have an advantage with her grappling if you're looking to pick her. Does she have the grappling advantage in this matchup? Yes, I believe so. I believe she has the boxing advantage too. Maybe not the power, but as far as boxing technique goes, I believe Pannie excels in that area in this contest. Bethe will most likely throw a lot of low kicks, look to land big punches. The flip side is Pannie wrestles with Bethe. And when she isn't wrestling, she's sticking and moving. My pick is going to be Pannie Kianzad via decision. I just feel way more comfortable on that side of this fight. And the odds for this matchup, we have Pannie coming in -120, -135. Bethe returning, small underdog, +120, +125. Yeah, you can't argue with those odds. I mean, Pannie hasn't been great, but if you look at her last fight, it was a very pleasing performance. Bethe on the flip side hasn't been great also, but you know, she's fought a lot of good girls. She's been in there with Holly Holm. Granted, she got beat up in that fight, you know, that head kick was beautiful, but yeah, for me, I'm going to side with Pannie Kianzad in this one. I got 5 on it. Fight number 5, we have Rafael Pessoa versus Tanner, the Bulldozer Boser. And we're going to start with the Brazilian, Rafael. So Pessoa comes into this fight 1 win, 1 loss inside the UFC, primarily a jiu-jitsu fighter. Pessoa was dominated in his UFC debut by the Francis Ngannou prodigy, Cyril Gane. He bounced back from that loss against Jeff Hughes, landing some really nice big kicks in that fight. Quite an impressive performance from Pessoa on the feet, considering he is a jiu-jitsu fighter. The opponent, Tanner, the Bulldozer Boser, comes into this fight 2 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. We saw Boser just a few days ago completely deaded Philippe Lins. Huge credit for that knockout. Beautiful violence. Boser is primarily a striker, a karate practitioner. It's difficult to see the karate style in a heavyweight, but if you go back and watch that fight he had just a few days ago, look at the movement Boser possesses. That's part of the reason Lins just looked frozen. He couldn't keep up with how quick Boser was circling. Then boom, he comes in and starches Lins. Both of these fighters have a common opponent in Cyril Gane. Although Boser lost that fight too, it didn't look like a mismatch. He learnt from that fight, clearly. Pessoa obviously learnt from that fight too, but I just don't know how much success Pessoa could find with his kickboxing against a striker in Boser, who moves just as well as Gane for a heavyweight. Striking advantage, movement advantage, experience advantage. For those reasons, I'm going to take Tanner Boser via decision. Okay, taking a look at the odds for this matchup, we have Pessoa coming in +200, +210. Boser returning -250, -240. Now, you can't really argue too much with that line. Boser looked really good the other night. For Pessoa to have success in this fight, I believe he has to take this fight to the mat. If he doesn't, be on the lookout for Boser in getting this fight done. But -250 is a little bit deep. Moving into the next one, we have Evloev versus Mike Grundy. And we're going to start with the Russian, Evloev. So Evloev comes into this fight 2-0 inside the UFC, primarily a wrestler inside the octagon. However, if we go back and watch Evloev fight Barzola, man, this guy's striking was impressive. And I know Barzola is primarily a wrestler too, who hasn't got the best of striking. But I ignore that kind of stuff. The facts are, Evloev is a good striker. I'm not sure how long he's been at Tiger Muay Thai, whether he was there for his last fight or not. It would make sense considering how nasty his kickboxing looked against Barzola. The opponent, Mike Grundy, comes into this fight 1-0 inside the UFC. A wrestler and boxer inside the octagon. Grundy had a good UFC debut win against Nad Narimani. I was there for that fight in London. Grundy was just able to clip Nad late in that second round. Both guys put in a lot out there up until that point. Credit to Grundy for his performance in his UFC debut. This matchup kind of feels like Grant Dawson versus Narimani in some ways. And by that I mean the UFC have paired 2 wrestlers up against each other, kind of favouring one wrestler over the other. I felt Grant Dawson was given a favourable matchup against Narimani. This time I feel Evloev has been given a favourable matchup against Grundy. Now I'm not saying Grundy is completely outmatched or can't clip Evloev, because he could clip him. This is a fight after all. What I'm trying to say is, Evloev can wrestle just as well as Grundy, if not better. I believe better, personally. The striking for me, I side with Evloev again. If there's anywhere Grundy wins this fight, I'd say it's punching power. That may not be enough. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Movsar Evloev via decision. Checking the odds for that matchup, we have Evloev coming in -220, -230. Wow. Grundy returning +180, +190. Now both of these guys are very good wrestlers. In my opinion, Evloev is a better wrestler, and as far as I'm concerned, he is a better striker too. You know, he really displayed that against Barzola. The danger, of course, is Mike Grundy has power in his hands. He's a very hungry fighter too, so Mike Grundy is definitely not going to give up in there. He's not going to quit, and that's going to make for a very, very good fight. But my pick is going to be another Russian. Moving into the next one, we have Jake, the prototype Collier, versus Tom Aspinall. And we're going to start with the American, Jake Collier. So Jake comes into this fight 3 wins, 3 losses inside the UFC. Looking back at Jake's last fight, which was nearly 2 years ago now, Jake was basically able to outwork Marcel Fortuna. Nothing too special. It didn't look like Michelidas finishing Fortuna with a spinning head kick. That was at 205. Jake hasn't fought at heavyweight as a pro. Correct me if I'm wrong though. The opponent, Tom Aspinall, comes into this fight 7 wins, 2 losses as a pro, making his UFC debut. One of his losses is a disqualification, by the way, 12-6, #John Jones. Tom is a teammate of Darren Till. Nice to see they're both on the same card. Aspinall is primarily a striker inside the octagon, a sniper of a right hand, similar to the sniper left hand Darren Till possesses. When Tom isn't landing with his boxing, his teep kicks to the body, his low calf kicks, you can see that Muay Thai style in his game, similar to Darren Till, just in a heavyweight form. Anything can happen when you step inside the octagon, especially when it's a heavyweight bout. Jake Collier, like I said, stepping up to heavyweight, he will still have punching power to sleep Tom, but I have to side with the fresher fighter. Tom is on the way up in the fight world. He's a sniper with his right hand. The kick inside of his game will add points up if he doesn't find a TKO. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Tom Aspinall via TKO in round number 1. I do think that Jake Collier has a chance, but I think he has to sleep Tom Aspinall in order to win this fight. Taking a look at the odds in that matchup, we have another heavy favourite on this card. Tom Aspinall coming in -210, -220, which is a little bit deep, man, considering he's only had 9 pro fights. Jake Collier returning around the +200 mark. I mean, does he have the ability to win this fight? Yes, he does. He has more experience than Tom Aspinall, but not at heavyweight. You know, he's stepping up to unknown territory, and he hasn't fought in over, well, basically 2 years. For me, it has to be the fresher fighter, the newcomer, the guy making his debut, Tom Aspinall. Fight number 8, we have Nicholas Locomotivo Dalby versus Jesse, the body snatcher Ronson. And we're going to start with Dalby. So Nicholas Dalby comes into this fight 2 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw inside the UFC. A brown belt in jiu-jitsu, a good wrestler and a karate practitioner. Dalby got a contract back into the UFC not too long ago. Was able to have a good comeback win against the Brazilian Cowboy. We had plus money on Dalby for that night. Really showed that grappling side of his game. Out wrestled Cowboy. Wasn't really able to use his jiu-jitsu too much, but securing top position was enough for Dalby in that return fight. The opponent, Jesse Ronson, comes into this fight 21 wins, 10 losses as a pro, making his UFC debut. We can class Ronson a veteran of the sport. Not a veteran at the highest level, but this man has over 30 pro fights. Seems to be primarily a striker. Nasty bodywork. I can see why his octagon name is Body Snatcher. The weakness of his game, in my opinion, is his takedown defense. If you can force Jesse into a grueling grappling match, you're going to be much safer that way. This is a winnable fight for either guy. If Dalby doesn't mix it up, for sure Jesse Ronson is going to look good. Dalby, arguably the better striker, but that's not going to stop Jesse Ronson from walking forward, looking to snatch the body, or the head of Nicholas Dalby. If I'm in the corner of Nicholas Dalby, I'm just asking him to use his natural karate game, but look to put Ronson up against the fence here and there when he can. And if he does that, I think he could tire Jesse, potentially finish this fight with a submission. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Nicholas Dalby via submission in round number 3. And we take a look at the odds for that matchup. We have, another heavy favourite. Nicholas Dalby coming in -250, -260. I'm not sure about that line. That line is big. Jesse Ronson returning, big underdog, +215, +220. I mean, striking wise, grappling wise, experience in fighting higher level opposition, it all goes to Nicholas Dalby. But Jesse Ronson, man, he's got some power. And he's a tough kid as well. He's going to walk forward. I mean, I call him a kid, but he's a veteran. He has over 30 pro fights. And realistically, you know, he isn't getting a really tough debut, but he's not getting a really easy debut either. I mean, this is a winnable fight for Jesse Ronson, especially at +215, +220. That's crazy. But if Nicholas Dalby, like I said, goes in there, looks to use that karate, looks to take down Jesse here and there, I think he could also perform very well in this fight. So yeah, the pick is going to be Locomotivo Dalby. Fight number 9, homies, last fight before the smoke break. We have Francisco Trinaldo versus Jai, the Black Country banger Herbert. And we're going to start with the Brazilian. So Trinaldo comes into this fight 15 wins, 6 losses inside the UFC, training out of Constrictor in Brazil. Trinaldo is a veteran who's fought at the highest level for some time now, a kickboxer for nearly 20 years. Looking at Trinaldo's most recent fights, he should probably be on a 4-fight winning streak, arguably robbed against Hernandez. Of course, Trinaldo could have been more aggressive, but the argument is Hernandez should have been more aggressive too. Against Bobby Green and Makdessi, Trinaldo just looked like a veteran. Both of those are good performances, especially for a man that's 41 years old, fighting at 155. The opponent, Jai Herbert, comes into this fight 10 wins, 1 loss as a pro, making his UFC debut. Primarily a boxer inside the octagon. He has finished some fights with his BJJ, but primarily dangerous with his boxing. Jai actually fought a guy who's a member of the gym that I'm going to be training at very soon. You know, that was quite a fun fight to watch. Now, originally, I was taking Trinaldo, just like I was originally taking Al Hassan, but I've swapped. And of course, I'm not confident in the swap, but I have swapped. If Jai comes into this fight knowing he cannot grapple with Trinaldo, if he comes into this fight with a stick and move type performance, a sniping performance, I think he can win this fight. Maybe not the same sniping performance as Munir, more of a boxing type performance. I think he can do well. It will be the speed and movement of Jai that wins this fight, not the overall ability, because if we're looking for the better fighter overall, that's Trinaldo all day. And he does have the ability to TKO, sub, or even win a decision against Jai. But man, I've got a feeling Jai is just going to use a lot of jabs, a lot of movement against the veteran. And if he fights in that way, the way I can picture him winning in my head, if he fights that way, I see him doing well in this fight. So for those reasons, I am going to go with Jai Herbert via decision. And yeah, Jai coming in +150, +155, +145. Originally, I was going with Trinaldo. It made more sense. He's fought a lot of good guys, 20 plus years in kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, still fighting at the highest level. You know, if you've got Hernandez backpedaling on his bike for 15 minutes, you're a nasty guy. But Jai Herbert really needs to come into this fight with a good game plan. And if he does, I like his chances, to be honest. So I'm going to go with Jai Herbert on that one. Alright, my homies. You know what time it is. If you waited to smoke with me, amen. If you've been smoking the whole time, amen. If you're not a smoker, but you enjoy the smoke breaks, triple amen. Alright. Right, so first things first. I'm the realist. No, I'm joking. These are the polls from Wednesday night and Saturday night. We had 827 votes for the Wednesday night main event. 83% of you picking the correct winner, Calvin Kattar. I don't blame any of you who are in the 17% picking Dan Ige. You know, that's the first time I ever picked against Dan Ige in the UFC. He's a warrior. You know, Dan Ige is a true warrior. Really showed us again how good he really is. The next one, we have 784 votes on Saturday night's main event. 74% of you taking Figueiredo. 26 coming back on the veteran. Now, I really enjoyed Figueiredo's performance, man. Again, he showed us, man, how dangerous he is at 125. That weight cut is going to be an issue, though. You know, how many more times can he make 125 pounds? Because he looked like a skeleton on the weigh-ins. You know, his performance completely went against how he looked trying to make 125 pounds. You know, the way he dropped Joey B like 3 times before he choked him out. I give so much credit in the world to Joey B, though. You know, he was hurt many times. He never gave up. Even when Figueiredo was searching for the choke, never gave up. Yeah, just so much credit given to the veteran on that one. Alright, last week, breakdown goals. I asked for 2 channel members. We hit 5. I asked for 350 likes. We hit 423. I asked for over 100 comments. We hit 134. And this is why I love my community. I mean, what more can you ask for? You set out a goal and you smash the goal, guys. Like, what more can I ask for? You are dope people. Thank you very much. Okay, so the breakdown goal for this breakdown in particular, we're going to stick with 2 channel members or more. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. We're not going to build this empire in a day or even a month. You know, we're going to take small steps and we're going to get there. So 2 channel members or more. Let's up the likes to 400 or more. And we're going to do subscribers instead of comments this time. So let's go for 100 plus subs. And we need to meet these goals by preferably Fight Night, you know, by the time the main event finishes. So 2 channel members, 400 likes, 100 subscribers. Let's see if we can smash these ones as well. If you hear your name or see your name, I mean, I don't know why you'd be just watching without no audio. So yeah, if you hear your name, you're a legend. Shout out to all my channel members: Damien D, Matt Cut Fitness, Washi, Bricku Donovan, Gabriel Montero, the Def Jam Blaster. And now for the 5 members, the newest members, the 5 members that help smash the breakdown goals of last week. Typical Skeptic, Jason ST, Mark Potter, Malik, my brother, Malik Smith, and James Rogers. All of you 5 guys, thank you for joining and adding to the member list. I hope the insight information is helping you build parlays, build doubles and all that kind of stuff. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you very much. You know, you're very generous people. And you are the foundation to me building Rome, you know. Make sure you guys leave a comment who you're taking in the main event. Because this main event, man, is super difficult to predict. You know, anyone wins that main event. I actually am on a main event streak. I believe 7 in a row now. And we know all streaks come to an end, whether that's a good streak or a bad streak. they do have an ending. And I wouldn't be mad if it was this one, you know, because it's so tough to predict. Alright homies, let's get into breaking down this main card. Alright, fight number 10, we have Alex Cowboy Oliveira versus Peter Sobotta. And we're going to start with Cowboy. So Cowboy comes into this fight 10 wins, 6 losses, 1 no contest inside the UFC. Primarily a super entertaining fighter. How can anyone dislike the Brazilian Cowboy? A real cowboy, man. Primarily a Muay Thai fighter. There's always blood when Cowboy fights. Whether he's being opened up by elbows, by Gunnar Nelson, or he's opening you up the way he did in his most recent fight with Max Griffin. Is Alex Oliveira a safe guy to bet on? Will he provide us with solid performances every time he steps into the octagon? Absolutely not. But like I said, this man is an entertainer, and I love that. The opponent, Peter Sobotta, comes into this fight 4 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC. A judo practitioner. It's been a while since we last saw Sobotta fight. Leon Edwards had a very good display, even finishing Sobotta in the last few seconds of that fight. Where will Sobotta have success in this matchup? In my opinion, in the clinch. Using those judo throws. Scoring on the mat too. The problem is, Oliveira really doesn't mind grappling. He has slick BJJ that will cause Sobotta problems, I believe. The striking, I'm absolutely leaning towards Cowboy. Unorthodox Muay Thai, he can get crazy with it too, which can go against him. Like I said, he's not the safest fighter to bet on. But man, I've got to take the Brazilian side of this fight. Cowboy has fought a lot of top guys. I believe he has what it takes to beat a fighter like Peter Sobotta. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Cowboy Oliveira via submission in round number 2. Okay, so checking the odds for this matchup, we have Oliveira coming in -165, -175. Sobotta returning +145, +150. Yeah, I mean, that line is pretty okay. Oliveira, rightfully the favourite. He's fought a lot of top guys, has good BJJ, good grappling. But like I said, man, he can get crazy in there. You know, he's not the safest guy to bet on. He's an entertainer, and I love that about him, you know, especially when it goes in his favour. Sobotta returning as an underdog. How does he win this fight? You know, he's going to have to be very composed, have to deal with a lot of crazy stuff from Oliveira, and arguably take down Oliveira, keep using his judo in this matchup. For me, it's the Brazilian side. Paul Bear Jew Craig versus Antigulov. What a pick and fight this is. Let's start with the Scotsman, Paul Craig. So Craig comes into this fight 4 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw inside the UFC. A Kung Fu fighter who's had near to no success with his Kung Fu as of yet. The art Paul has success with is Jiu-Jitsu. One of the best Hail Mary submissions of all time in the UFC. It's no secret the area of success Paul Craig is having in MMA. All 4 of his wins come in via submission. The opponent, Antigulov, comes into this fight 2 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC. A Russian fighter, so a wrestler inside the octagon. Quite an inactive fighter too, has 1 fight a year. Antigulov, just like Paul Craig, he's looking to grapple. Uses that wrestling base strongly. All 4 of Antigulov's UFC fights have been finished in the first round. So it appears he's round 1 or bust. Against Cutelaba, he was looking good. Then gassed out a little bit and just basically quit. His mental toughness isn't at the highest level, in my opinion. Oleksiejczuk set Antigulov down with a beautiful uppercut, straight into ground and pound too. It was a lovely performance. Now, like I said earlier about Paul Craig, it's no secret the area he has success, right? I actually think if Paul doesn't look to use his grappling, he could have good success for the first time using his Kung Fu. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, because he did stun Shogun at one point, but you know what I'm trying to say. Paul Craig isn't scaring any 205er with his striking ability, But this time, I think maybe he can. Antigulov absolutely doesn't want to fight on the feet. He wants to grapple, and grapple only. I think Paul Craig could get a first TKO stoppage in this fight. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Paul Craig via TKO in round number 2. And the odds should be a straight pick'em. Yeah, Paul Craig minus 110, Antigulov minus 110. Perfect. You know, Antigulov could take down Paul Craig, smother him, beat him up, find a choke, or even a ground and pound finish in that first round. But if Paul doesn't get finished in that first round, if we enter round 2, do not be surprised if Antigulov just looks for a way out in that fight and Paul Craig gets it done on the feet. That's what I'm going to take. Let's go, Paul Craig. Fight number 12, my homies. We have Carla, the Cookie Monster, Esparza versus Maryna Rodriguez. And we're going to start with Carla first. So Carla comes into this fight 7 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. A quality proven wrestler, former title challenger too. Esparza has good high level experience in fighting brilliant opposition. Now on a 3-fight winning streak. She used her base, which is wrestling, very, very well against Werner and Alexa Grasso. That was really the story of both of those fights. Against Michelle Waterson, quite a boring fight. Esparza was either all the way in or all the way out with her striking. The story wasn't really wrestling, it was more inactivity from both fighters. Who edged it? It could have gone either way, in my opinion. The opponent, Maryna Rodriguez, comes into this fight 2 wins, 2 draws, 0 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a Muay Thai striker inside the octagon. Maryna, funnily enough, she won't find it funny, obviously. But yeah, Maryna has 2 draws. Reasons for both of those draws are the rounds that she loses very evidently. Too evidently. Randa scored a 10-8 in the first round. Maryna went on to win the next 2 rounds. Vice versa against Calvillo. Maryna won the first 2 rounds, then lost a 10-8 in the last round. Maybe this time she chooses to lose a 10-8 in the second round. Nah, all jokes aside, this is a really, really good matchup. Maryna is a big girl for the weight class. Her Muay Thai striking seems to always score, unless she's taken down by her opponent. Tecia Torres had no success up against the fence trying to take down Maryna, nor did she have any success with her striking. Maryna looked really good in that fight, you know, it has to be said. Carla's striking has improved, it's definitely evolved, but that's not where she's going to win this fight. She has to impose her wrestling on Maryna, look to take her down, secure top position, even look for a 10-8 round. For me, I think Maryna will make the takedown job a very tough one for Carla, and if she does, if she keeps this fight upright, her striking is above Carla's in my opinion. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Maryna Rodriguez via decision. And the odds for this matchup, if I can find them, we have Maryna coming in minus 170, minus 165, getting some respect. I like that. Carla returning plus 140, plus 135. I mean, Carla, she can do it, right? She's a really good wrestler. If she takes down Maryna, she can do it. She has to take her down more than once, most likely as well. Maryna, if she can keep it up, man, stay up on the feet, her striking may be enough. I do believe it will be enough. So the pick for me is going to be the Brazilian. Fabricio Werdum versus Alexander the Moolah Gustafsson. And we're going to start with Fabricio. So Fabricio comes into this fight 11 wins, 6 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a jiu-jitsu fighter, a second-degree black belt, the former heavyweight champion before he got too excited against the now champion Stipe Miocic. Fabricio had some time off due to a USADA suspension. In all honesty, his return performance just wasn't good enough. He looked like he hadn't been training. Slow, stationary, eating big shots from Alexei Oleinik. You know, eating big shots from Alexei Oleinik is pretty unheard of. I do expect Fabricio to look better than he did in his return fight, but the matchmakers haven't done him any justice in this one. The opponent, Alexander Gustafsson, comes into this fight 10 wins, 6 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a boxer inside the octagon. A well-respected name in the sport of MMA. Most known by his efforts in battle with Jon Jones. When you put so much into trying to beat Jon Jones and you just can't, like it or not, it breaks you, man. You see that against Anthony Smith. Gus just didn't look right. Eating more strikes than he normally would. Just wilting in that 3rd and 4th round. I respect his decision to leave the sport, go back to the drawing board, work on a few things, whether that's mentally or physically. Striker versus grappler. Both of these fighters are arguably out of their prime, which always makes for an interesting watch. Gus, without a doubt, has the better boxing. Fabricio, without a doubt, has the better grappling, the better jiu-jitsu. I can't get over how slow, how vacant Fabricio looked in his return fight against Alexei Oleinik. Gus has to avoid being taken down, of course, which I believe he will. He has good takedown defense, unless your name's Daniel Cormier or Jon Jones. My pick is going to be Alexander Gustafsson via TKO in round number 1. I just think Fabricio is done at this point, man. That return fight, so off-putting. Alexander coming in minus 330, minus 340. Wow, yeah, you can't argue with it. Fabricio coming back nearly plus 250, plus 260. I mean, how does Fabricio win this fight? It's not 5 rounds. Gus isn't really going to wilt in there the way he did against Anthony Smith. Fabricio has to take down Gustafsson, and I just don't think he can. So, yeah, in my opinion, my prediction is Gustafsson lights up Fabricio. Co-main event. Man, what a co-main event. We have Mauricio Shogun Rua versus Antonio Nogueira. And we're going to start with the Brazilian. What one? Shogun. Shogun comes into this fight 10 wins, 9 losses, 1 draw inside the UFC. Training out of King's MMA. A veteran, a legend, a man that shouldn't be fighting anymore. Having said that, Shogun would tell me I know nothing because he's won 4 of his last 6 fights. That doesn't change my opinion. Shogun was able to hugely upset Tyson Pedro, completely deaded by Anthony Smith, no shame in that loss. Shogun really looked his age against Paul Craig, stunned on the feet, not able to put Craig in any real danger with his striking. The opponent, Antonio Nogueira, comes into this fight 6 wins, 6 losses inside the UFC. A veteran, a legend, a man that shouldn't be fighting anymore. 44 years old now, still looking to compete. Absolutely crazy. This isn't a rematch, it's a trilogy. These guys have already fought twice, Shogun winning both of those fights. The second fight really could have gone either way, a lot of Brazilians disagreeing with the decision 5 years ago. Lil Nog was able to stun Shogun in the first round in their rematch. That alone proves he has the ability to win the trilogy fight. The flip side is, Shogun absolutely could sleep Lil Nog this time. The pick's going to be Shogun. I ain't confident in the pick, but I wouldn't be confident picking Lil Nog either. I really think that should be the case for anyone betting on this fight, anyone predicting this fight. Whatever side of the fence you sit at, there should be no confidence on that side. You know, if you're picking Shogun, how can you be confident? If you're picking Lil Nog, how can you be confident? Let's just sit back and watch this one. My pick's going to be Shogun. And taking a look at the odds for this matchup, we have Lil Nog coming in as an underdog, plus 160, plus 155. Shogun returning minus 200, minus 190. I mean, those odds should be closer. It doesn't matter what happened in both of the first fights. Lil Nog has a chance. Shogun has a chance. Both of these legends should call it a day after this one. Alright my homies, 15th and final fight on this card. The main event, Robert the Reaper Whittaker versus Darren the Gorilla Till. And we're going to start with the former champion. So Rob Whittaker comes into this fight 11 wins, 3 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a very well-rounded fighter. The former 185 champion, losing his title to now king of the weight class, Adesanya. Whittaker can beat any 185er on his day. Not many fighters can go 25 minutes, twice, with Yoel Romero, but Whittaker did. Really showed his heart, his toughness, determination in those fights. A rightful owner of the 185 title, you cannot deny that. The opponent, Darren Till, comes into this fight 6 wins, 2 losses, 1 draw inside the UFC. Primarily a Muay Thai striker inside the octagon. A former welterweight fighter, now fighting in his actual weight class. Like Darren said, he's not the biggest middleweight, certainly not the smallest either. Darren had a very good debut win at 185 against Kelvin. Honestly thrown into the deep end with that debut fight at 185. Nothing like RDA fighting Tarek Saffiedine for his debut at 170. I took Darren in that debut fight at 85. A lot of people thought that he'd get slept, but he didn't. He clinched early and often, used his Muay Thai very well in that fight against Kelvin Gastelum. This fight is pretty simple in terms of confidence. You cannot be confident. Why? Because Robert Whittaker, like we just said, the rightful former 185 champion, has the ability to sleep any man at 185 on his day. Darren Till, on the flip side, is super hungry. He's still growing as a fighter, still learning about himself, still evolving. Could Darren Till sleep Robert Whittaker? Absolutely. No question about it. If I was in the corner of Whittaker, I'd ask for wrestling in the first round. Take down Darren. Put him in the world that only Tyron Woodley has. He didn't like it there. If I'm in the corner of Darren Till, I'm simply asking for that Muay Thai base. A strong, big posture. Keep measuring range with that lead hand. Get into a flow with his kicks early. Man, this fight goes either way. But for me, I'm going to take the fighter who's on the up. And that's Darren Till. He knows Whittaker has had some wars. If he can stay on his feet, keep using that Muay Thai in a composed manner, not rush in and look to bully the opponent the way he did against Cowboy and Masvidal. Yeah, it worked at 170. You know, he was a beast at 170, a real big guy who could bully his opponents. But that has to change at 185. You know, this is a different game at 185. He needs to stay calm and composed. If he does, I see Darren Till either finding a TKO finish or winning via decision. Personally, I'm going to take a decision because I'm anticipating Darren being more focus based rather than finish based. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Darren Till via decision. And these odds are perfect, by the way. Darren Till minus 110. Robert Whittaker minus 110. Yeah, perfect. Robert Whittaker absolutely can sleep Darren Till at any moment. Even grind out a decision with his wrestling. But Darren Till is a big guy still for 185. And if he uses that Muay Thai in a composed manner, doesn't look to finish Robert Whittaker, but nullify him with kicks, and uses that reach, you know, just calm and composed in there, the way he was against Kelvin. I can see Darren Till winning this fight, and that's going to be my prediction for that one. Alright homies, if you've enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you go ahead, smash those breakdown goals. Let's get chatting in the comments. Alright guys, peace.